Been a little while since my last Jeffrey Epstein update, so I figured I'd tag in here and give you the latest scoop. The Jeffrey Epstein birthday book has been released. There is a little bit of information redacted in there, but not all that much. It's, for the most part, the entire kit and caboodle, filled with all kinds of new photos, and basically, if you don't know what the birthday book is, it's something that Ghislaine Maxwell put together for Jeffrey Epstein's birthday, which is a bunch of notes that were written by his closest pals. I'm not going to dive too deep on this one here because CoffeeZilla just tackled this on his Voidzilla channel and did an amazing dive into it, as well as analyzing the credibility of the contents of the book, because naturally the administration is claiming it's all horseradish, it is fake, baloney, fiddlesticks, that kind of thing. And I think CoffeeZilla does a good job of analyzing the facts that are presented here. This is a actual book that has been compiled here, and if it is all fake and a forgery, it is one of the most elaborate forgeries I've ever seen. Because again, there's a lot of new information and new photos, actual legitimate photos of Epstein and friends in this book that have never been presented elsewhere before. And from what I can tell, pretty much everyone else that is in that book that has wrote letters isn't denying the authenticity of the letters they wrote. It's just Donald Trump crying foul on it. If the whole thing is fake, why is it only him pointing that out? Or maybe they're claiming that only his section is fake. And in that case, that's a really difficult thing to have slid into an actual bound book in a way that is this watertight. It would be, like I said, one of the most elaborate forgeries I've ever been aware of. Anyway, I highly recommend you check out Voidzilla's coverage of it. I'm not here to talk too deeply on that. The one I want to focus on is by far the wackiest claim I have seen yet from this administration in regards to Donald Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein, where they're trying to claim, or at least they were briefly trying to claim, that he was actually an FBI informant working to take down Jeffrey Epstein. I shit you not, they actually tried the classic, five-dimensional chess move of, well, actually, simpletons, this was a bold strategy from Trump here, being the brave, courageous man that he is. He only got close to Jeffrey Epstein and flew on his plane numerous times because he was compiling evidence against him so that way the FBI could bring him down. His actual quote was, when he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. What a preposterous, absurd claim. More like Mr. Gargling Johnson, because he's got Donald Trump's dick so far down his throat that now he's farting out these fairy tales. What? So he tried to say that once Trump became privy to the evil of Jeffrey Epstein, he excommunicado from Mar-a-Lago, kicked him out. Really, it was all an elaborate ruse. He was a super spy working for the FBI to try and put the kibosh on the Jeffrey Epstein operation. Wow, they think you are that stupid that you will buy this B-movie plotline here. Just picture this for a moment. If Trump was an FBI informant, do you think that wouldn't have been the first thing he would have said when Jeffrey Epstein did eventually get busted? By the way, it wasn't Donald Trump's deep cover that led to that or anything of the sort. But just imagine this. If that was the case, that would be literally the first thing Trump would have said, and he would have crowned himself like the next James Bond. You wouldn't have heard the end of it. Donald Trump would not have ever let you fucking stop hearing about how he was one of the most successful spies, up there with some of the greats like fucking Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible. He was able to stop Jeffrey Epstein. He was an FBI informant for all these years. What an outlandish narrative to try and pull out of your asshole here to explain his proximity to Jeffrey Epstein for so fucking long and the amount of times he flew on his plane. To say that it was all because he was an FBI informant is just unhinged. Just imagine those phone calls if this was real. FBI, listen, Jeffrey Epstein, he's not buying it. I'm gonna have to fly on the plane and there's gonna be some bad stuff that happens, but just know it's all in the name of keeping my cover intact. I gotta make sure he trusts me. No, really, I swear, that's exactly what it's for. Okay, I'm going in. This was received so poorly, laughed at by so many people, even in the most devout of MAGA cults, that Johnson had to walk it back 2 days later, he tries to explain what I was referring to in that long conversation was what the Epstein victim's attorney said. More than a decade ago, President Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, and he was one of the only prominent people, as everyone has reported, that he was willing to help law enforcement go after this guy who was a disgusting child abuser, sex trafficker, all the allegations. That's what they heard, so the president was helpful in that. I don't know if I used the right terminology, but that's common knowledge, and everybody knows that. So this is much ado about nothing. Also, fun fact, Trump recently debunked that theory that the reason he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out was because he found out about all of the disgusting shit he was involved with. According to Trump, the reason they had a falling out is because people were taken out of the spa, hired by him, in other words, gone, and other people would come and complain. This guy's taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want them taking people, and he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again, and I said, out of here. So he is literally just throwing that into the shitter himself, saying, no, I actually kicked him out because he was stealing my workers. He was taking my girls over here. And I said, nope. I had to put my foot down right then and there, and I said, this is a load of fish paste. This is no more. This is the end of that. Get out of town, Buster. So what Johnson is even referring to here is something that it seems Trump himself shot down the idea of. So it is just crazy across the board. To me, what this feels like is that the political puppets in power here are dipping their tootsies, testing lines to see how far they can push absolute fantasies. How stupid are people and how much shit will they eat? And he tried this FBI informant angle just to, test the waters a little bit. Will people buy it? Can we get away with something like this? But in this case, stove was too hot, so he took his hand off it and said, no, it was a misunderstanding. This is what I was referring to. Because the backlash was a little much. It was too stupid. So they're trying to find that perfect line of insanity that people will buy. That's what it seems like to me. There is just no way this was some mix-up here in terminology. What sensible human being would possibly get confused on what an FBI informant means? You called him an FBI snitch. That's an actual thing. And you're just like, oh no, I might have used the wrong words there. That's not exactly what he was. In fact, he never really worked for the FBI or anything like that in any official capacity. And really, he didn't actually provide a whole ton of evidence that led to the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein. That was kind of a completely different investigation that Trump wasn't involved in. But yeah, he was an FBI informant, I think. At least I thought he was. No, that's not the right word. What's the word I'm looking for? Friend. He was a friend of Jeffrey. No, not a friend. No. Man, there's a word for it. I just can't find it somewhere. It's weird, but yeah, everyone's making a mountain out of a molehill here. I just said the wrong terminology. You knew he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, right? No, that's the most important part. What a bumbling oaf. Just like a true textbook imbecile. It's crazy, though, because I do know people bought that. I know there were people that heard that and breathed a huge sigh of relief, wiping sweat from their forehead. Whew. I knew it all along. I never had any doubts. I knew Trump was actually 5 steps ahead of everyone else. He was an FBI informant. I always had a hunch. I always knew that. It's so fucking sad. It's so pathetic. Anyway, I just wanted to give you the little Epstein update here. Again, I highly recommend checking out the Voidzilla video covering the most recent Epstein development here in regards to the birthday book. And yeah, anyway, that's about it. See ya.